first time I saw it, it looked like a mistake the woods made. A pale shape hunched in the crook of a spruce, long arms lifted to the branch above like a climber frozen mid-motion. Snow dazzle made the bark glow. The thing didn't glow. It just held its mouth open, as if tasting the cold. I blinked hard. The limb shivered, needles fell, and the shape was gone. Rewind to the beginning, early February. My aunt had a cabin on Kestrel Ridge she was prepping to sell, and I volunteered to check pipes and sweep the place before the listing photos. A long week alone sounded like medicine. I brought my dog, Rook, black as a coal scuttle and smarter than I deserve, and a tote of groceries, plus a stack of paperbacks I pretended I'd read. The road in was a throat of snow-bent pines. When I killed the engine, the silence pressed its ear to the cabin and listened. 2 floors, cedar siding, a low balcony off the upstairs bedroom that faced a stand of spruce, the kind of place that makes you whisper like a church. Inside smelled like dust and cedar and an old winter. I opened taps, sparked kindling, let the place wake up in creaks. The floor plan was simple. Living room and tiny kitchen below, 2 bedrooms above, the bigger one with a sliding glass door to that balcony. I chose that one because of course I did. If there's a window, I want to be next to it. Day 1 was chores, then coffee on the balcony while Rook stood with his paws on the rail and watched snow fall between the trunks like static. A jay rattled and left. Somewhere in the trees, a branch popped like a knuckle. It was all normal and good. Night came with the kind of cold that makes nails complain. I set a lamp on low and let the stove heat the spine of the house. Rook curled by the door, head up, watching nothing like it was a job. About midnight, he stood with the quiet decision of a soldier and went to the sliding glass. He didn't growl. He just looked up. I followed his eyes and laughed at myself. The roof was shedding powder, and the balcony railing was gathering a white lip. I cracked the door to let out some heat. That's when I heard it. Steps on the roof. Not scrabble, not scatter. 6 separate thumps, spaced like a grown person walking heel-toe, heel-toe, heel-toe. Then silence. You can explain a lot if you want to. Snow falls in lumps, icicles let go. House bones shift. I lit a cigarette I didn't need and told myself all of that. The smoke tasted like old resolutions. The roof didn't make another sound. When I went to sleep, I left the bedroom lamp on. Rook stayed by the door, listening with his whole face. Morning made the world honest. I went out to brush the balcony. No footmarks on the roof. No slide, no skid. Only on the rail. 2 long handprints melted into the fresh. Not paws. Not human. The fingers were too slender, too long, as if someone had added a joint to each. I told myself I was measuring the prints for a story I'd laugh about later. I told myself a lot of things that morning. Day 2, a storm sat on the ridge like a big cat. I shoveled the walkway, came back inside, watched white erase the shapes of the woods. A pair of deer crossed in single file, paused to dare the silence to answer them, and disappeared again. That afternoon, I walked the perimeter with Rook and found a neat ring of prints around the cabin. Not deer, not boot, no nails, no pads. The stride was wrong. Too long for something that light. I followed them until they vanished under a crabbed old hemlock whose lower branches touched the ground. When I ducked to look beneath, the space was clean, a little room pinned by needles. No print in, no print out. Back inside, I opened a window to flush the smell of damp wool. The wind came in with it, a polite hand on the shoulder. Snow skittered across the floorboards and melted into little stars. I was halfway to feeling foolish when there came a sound against the glass. Tap. 3 breaths. Tap. The kind of tap a wedding ring makes on a window. The kind of tap a fingernail makes when you want to be annoying, but not loud. Rook's ears went forward and then flattened. He didn't bark. He backed away from the door like the ocean was rising. I closed the window. I drew the curtain without meaning to. I told myself this is how horror stories start. With ordinary noises assigned bad meanings by a mind that wants to be thrilled. I made tea I didn't drink and went to bed early with a book I didn't read. At 2 a.m., the steps on the roof came back. 6 of them again. Heel toe. Heel toe. Heel toe. They stopped directly over the door. In the silence that followed, you could have heard snow fall from itself. I whispered, to no one and to whatever, I hear you. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because pretending you don't hear a thing that wants to be heard is a way to make it angrier. The balcony chime. Just a strand of flat shells my aunt hung by a nail. Let out a thin, dry clack. There was no wind. The shells clicked once more, as if something had brushed past them. I couldn't go out there. I couldn't stand in the cold and prove the world was still the world. I did what cowards do. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed and put one hand on Rook's rib cage and felt it go up and down until the numbers in my head turned into a long, numb line. Dawn finally finds you whether you deserve it or not. The railing wore a new set of those handprints right where the chime hung. On the spruce beyond the balcony, about 8 feet up, there were 4 scratches in the bark, parallel, shallow, the kind of marks you make when your grip is too smooth and you're sliding. I cleaned the rail with hot water like it was a mess, not evidence. The part of me that did that felt like I was erasing something I shouldn't have known. I told myself I'd drive down the mountain and find Ranger Lena Ortiz, whose card my aunt kept under a magnet, and ask her what climbs roofs and taps glass and leaves long fingers in the snow. The truck coughed and died. Batteries do what they want in cold. I tried again. The engine turned and then quit, as if it had changed its mind about living. I sat there with my forehead on the steering wheel, listening to the heater fan give up, and laughed out loud at nothing. Back inside, I made a plan out of moving furniture. I slid the bookcase against the balcony door. I wedged a chair under the downstairs knob. I stacked a clanking fortress of pans on the kitchen sill that would have fallen if someone breathed wrong. The plan was dumb, but it felt like a plan. Rook watched me move things and then stationed himself at the foot of the stairs, so seriously that I apologized to him for being the kind of person who says, stationed, like a movie. The day was longer than it had any right to be. Snow flattened the world. Around 4, a snowplow passed somewhere below and gave a single horn. I waved out of reflex at a road I couldn't see. The horn didn't come again. Evening in the kind of dark that carries its own weight. I went upstairs and sat with my back to the wall and my feet pointed at the door. I had a camp hatchet next to me for bravery theater. At 11:20, the shells clicked once. At 12:03, something touched the window the way you touch the shoulder of someone you love when you don't want to startle them. At 12:10, Rook got up on stiff legs and walked into the bathroom and lay in the tub like it was the safest shape he could find. The steps on the roof didn't come this time. Instead, from the spruce, I heard the soft hiss of snow getting brushed by something that didn't care if I heard it or not. I stood. I told myself to stop telling myself things. I slid the curtain back 2 inches. It was exactly where my first look had put it. The white-armed thing had wedged itself into the Y of 2 limbs. Its head was tilted so far to the side that one ear, the idea of an ear, looked upside down. Its mouth was open in the slow O of someone about to sing and never starting. One hand was on the upper branch. The other hung down, long fingers forward, almost touching the air above the rail. I didn't raise the phone. I didn't breathe. In the glass, I saw my own eyes in the reflection of its pale shape and the fine frost inside where our breath had made our own weather. I thought, stupidly, that if I swung the curtain shut, it would have to go away the way a trick goes away when you close the book. Before I could move, it did. It didn't climb. It unfolded, like a measuring tape that had been bent back on itself, and slid down the trunk into the dark between the lower limbs. It didn't make more noise than a gloved hand would make on a coat. The shells didn't click. The jaw didn't close. It just wasn't there in the place where it had been. I slept in stops and starts. The night ended somewhere while I wasn't watching. Morning brought a thin hush, the kind that comes when snow decides it has said enough. I went out and looked at the rail. New prints again, across the way. The trunk wore a fresh, shiny stripe where resin had run, the kind a tree uses to say, "This hurt." Embedded in the sticky line were 3 tiny black hairs, stiff as nylon, cut square at the ends. I didn't touch them. I didn't want to know if they bent. At 10, a county truck with a plow blade ground up the drive like a promise. A woman in a brown parka and a bun got out and introduced herself as Ranger Lena Ortiz. "Your aunt said you might call," she said. "Then you didn't. So I came." I told her everything I could without sounding like I was writing fiction in my head. She didn't smile, which helped. She walked the balcony without stepping on the prints. She squinted at the spruce. She took out a little magnifier like a jeweler and looked at the resin stripe. "You get fishers up here," she said. "Weasels. They'll climb and make a racket. Martins, too. Twice the trouble for half the size." She paused. "Their toes aren't that long, though. So, what do I do?" "Nothing heroic. Get your battery jumped. Leave. I'll log a patrol." "Do I report this as what I think it is?" "You report what you saw," she said. "Let the part you think sit in the back seat." She helped me tow the truck's sulking battery back to life. We shook hands and she said, "Cabins hold echoes. Don't give them new ones to work with." Then she left 2 tire tracks that looked like parentheses around the house. I packed badly and quickly. The tub where Rook had slept was dusted with a fine powder of paint, like something had vibrated against it all night. I wiped it up without looking too close. I locked the door out of reflex, even though I knew locks weren't really the point. At home, where the heat came out of the floor and the windows looked at brick, I told friends the short version. Weird sounds. Weird prints. Ranger said Martins. I didn't mention the mouth that never decided to sing. I didn't mention the way Rook lay down in the tub and didn't leave it until morning. 2 nights later, I found a recording on my phone. It was only 11 seconds. In the middle of the second night, my thumb must have hit the button. The file was mostly static. Then a soft, even hiss, like a sleeve on bark. Then, very close to the microphone, a sound like someone dragging 4 fingernails very lightly across a strip of frosted glass. You can't prove anything with a noise. The world is generous with those. I still have my aunt's listing photos saved on my laptop. Bright rooms, pine table, that balcony smiling like nothing ever happened. Sometimes I open them and see if the spruce looks different, knowing what it held. It doesn't. Trees aren't haunted. People are. I used to think fear was a thing that arrived with speed. Running in the dark, doors slamming, voices raised. Kestrel Ridge taught me that fear can stand on a balcony and wait, and wait, and wait, until you step out to look. It taught me that some footprints start where you can't find the first step, and end where you can't see the last. It taught me that wild things make noise because noise is honest, and that quiet is usually something practicing you. When friends ask what I learned, I tell them the version that makes them laugh. Bring jumper cables. Don't hang shell chimes.